Welcome, Diane. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, lovely to meet you. Finally, after a long time, we have been hanging around each other for a long time, but never really had a conversation. So really good to meet you. Really looking forward to the topic that we have chosen today, the serious business of making exercise fun, a topic that is relevant to each one of us. Absolutely relevant to each one of us. So we will get into the topic that we have chosen for today, but why don't we start with understanding who Diane is? So tell us, what is your story?
What is my story? Wow. So it's a long one, and I'm aware that we've got an hour to talk, so I'm going to try to condense it. So there's probably a couple of key elements, key phases to my story. It's not a sort of straight line, linear thing. I've been up and down and round and all over the place. But I think the place where I'd like to start is when I was 30 years old. And I was working for a big multinational company. I've been doing a high-flying sales support job, literally high-flying, because I was all over the world training sales teams and things like this. So very nice lifestyle, expenses paid, meals out, as much as I could drink without having to pay for it. Sounds great when you're in your late 20s. Of course, it's a recipe for disaster health-wise. I put myself under a lot of pressure to perform at work, and really work always came first, with a little bit of partying with the excuse that, you know, partying was good for business kind of thing. And then when I was 30 years old, I suffered from a slipped disc. And anybody who's ever experienced a slip disc knows how horribly painful it is. And I was in total agony for weeks when it first happened. So I was actually on a dream holiday in New Zealand, like holiday of a lifetime kind of thing, when I had this slip disc, and it basically ruined the last week that we were there, and was agony trying to get home on the aeroplane. And that was a whole journey in itself, trying to get myself right. But as part of that journey, I realised that part of the equation of why at 30 years old, I was hobbling around like an old woman in agony, which I really shouldn't have been at that age, was I'd not looked after myself and put my own health first. And I was a little bit overweight, not massively overweight, but a little bit overweight. And I knew that wasn't helpful to recover a back injury. And also I'd not really exercised properly for years. So I would say my core strength and my body strength in general was very weak. And I decided to take matters into my own hands and to make my health my number one priority, and get my fitness and well-being back, and hopefully shake off this back injury, which at this point I'd had for 6 months, with very little sign that it was going to go away. So I decided, counterintuitively to some people, I decided to start swimming, cycling and running, which some people will know are the components of triathlon, because swimming and cycling are very low weight bearing. So from an injury point of view, that seemed like a nice gentle thing to do. Running, I'd done a little bit in my teenage years, so that appealed to me. So I decided to do swimming, cycling and running. I then decided to enter a triathlon. And about 6 months after I'd made this kind of life turnaround decision, rather than hobbling around with a back injury, I was doing triathlons all over the country. I'd become a big fitness enthusiast. But the most important thing is I'd learned to put myself first, and I'd learned to put my career, as valuable and important as it was only going to be successful if I was healthy and successful. So it had to come second to my own health. So that was phase one, let's say.
Wow, what a turnaround, what a turnaround. Any of us who's watching us on this video, and they're listening, and if they have been through an injury or a life-changing illness, this is what we need to learn from you, that it is completely possible. And I put up my hand as well. This is something that I need to do more of. take ownership of my health and know that it is possible to turn things around despite whatever is going on.
Yeah, and it's not always easy to do, and that leads me in quite well to the second part of the story. So even though I knew all this, even though I'd experienced this massive turnaround, and I did go on, so about 4 years later, I went on to complete Ironman UK, which is the sort of ultimate distance triathlon event that you can do.
You don't do anything half-assed, do you?
I tend not to, but there's learning in that as well. So I did that, and obviously that was brilliant. But the year after I did Ironman UK, I had my son. I had a baby for the first time. Okay, so one of the things about maintaining focus on yourself and your own health and well-being is it can easily get thrown off track by the circumstances of your life. And having a baby, and it wasn't an easy birth, and it wasn't an easy first 6 months as a newborn either, completely threw me off track. So despite everything I'd learned and everything I knew, I still got thrown off track as well. And I really like people to know that, because there's nothing wrong with you if you lose your way. That's normal, that's natural, but you can still find your way back again. So I struggled with motivation, I struggled with loss of identity. When I did go back to work, I started putting all my energy into work because I'd been away for a year, and trying to be a perfect mum at the same time. So now I was trying to do two things at the same time, completely slipped my mind, about what about me? I'm in here somewhere as well. That resulted eventually, I had a burnout situation, self-diagnosed burnout situation in 2016, when I was in this state where I just couldn't be bothered to get out of bed in the morning. I mean, I'd lost all enjoyment in life. It was like, logically, I knew I had a happy, wonderful family. Logically, I knew I had a really good, well-paid job. They were letting me work flexibly and part-time and everything. There was nothing in the logic that said that anything should be wrong. And yet, I just couldn't see the point of any of it at all. I was completely burnt out. I'd been trying to do too many things for too many people, and I'd not looked after myself. And I hadn't, at the point of my burnout, I don't think I'd done any exercise for at least 12 months, even though I periodically dipped in and out. And I took myself to a women-only wellbeing retreat because I felt I needed that break to clear my head and work out what to do next. And that was really eye-opening for me, not just for myself. So that was my first experience at, say, life coaching and getting that kind of support, and that really helped me personally. But because I was there with a group of women, I saw the pattern then. I saw that I wasn't alone in this, pushing myself so hard that I forgot myself. I saw the pattern in other women. And what really struck me was I was there in my 40s. There was quite a few other women that were there in their 50s, their 60s. Some of them, their children had now left home, and it was the first time that they'd realised what was left for them. And some of them were really distraught when they'd kind of reached this point in life where they kind of felt, what have I been doing all this time? That, where's my life left at the end of this? And it wasn't so much that I thought I don't want to end up like them. It was more that I felt angry that they'd had to go through that. I felt like women put so much pressure on ourselves, and then we have this society and this culture that encourages it and reinforces it, and then it just combines into a big mess. And when I saw the power of the life coaching and how it helped me and how it helped them, I became really interested in that. So I did go on, because on the retreat, I realized I was missing my physical activity and how important that was. I did go on to pick that back up, and combined with other actions I took, I sort of put my own life back together. I started, enjoying life again, doing things I liked again, putting myself first again, not feeling guilty about spending time on myself. These are all really important themes. But as I went through that process for myself, I had it in my mind that this would be a wonderful thing to share with other women. and combining what I knew about the power of physical activity from personal experience with the power of coaching and helping women shake off the guilt and put themselves first. That's how my business was born. That's where the business idea was born from, was combining these two elements. And I really wanted to shake off this idea that doing exercise has to be a no pain, no gain, you know, make you do press ups, go to a boot camp. There's a lot of beating ourselves up involved in exercise, which just adds to the stress and adds to the pressure. And to me, that's not what it's about. And there's a different way of approaching it that's about self-care, nourishing ourselves, well-being, and it's a much more positive way of approaching it. And that's what I really wanted to bring to people.
Wonderful, wonderful. It is so reassuring to understand that, well, wellness coaches and people who do this also tend to go off track. So next time it happens to me, I will try and beat myself up a little bit less. Thank you for sharing that. Really, really appreciate your honesty and authenticity here, because when we look at all these fit people, it is so easy to look at them and say, oh, wow, they must be doing it inside. They must be doing it every day, or we just can't have that kind of discipline and really write ourselves off. So thank you for bringing that into the conversation.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, and it's so we make so many assumptions when we look at people from the outside, when really we know nothing about their lives. I mean, you could, if you were walking down the street and you saw two ladies running, and one super slim and one a bit overweight, it would be a natural assumption to think the super slim woman was the fitter of the two. Yeah. But you've got no way of knowing, because that could be a super slim woman because she, you know, she's just naturally not eaten much in her life. She might be quite young, so she's just not got to a stage in her life where she's put any weight on. She might have been ill recently and lost weight, and she might be running to try and get some health and fitness back. And the lady that's a bit overweight, she could have been like running for years. She could be doing ultra marathons. I know plenty of overweight women that can run an ultra marathon, me included. Not right now, but I have done. I was overweight when I did Ironman UK. So you can't tell anything from seeing people from the outside. And I think what's kind of unfortunate about that is when we not only make that judgment about people, but we also use that as a way to judge ourselves and go, oh, well, I've not been able to do that, so there must be something wrong with me. You know, when I had my son and he was, say, 6 months old, and I was really struggling to make time for myself, it would have been very easy for me to look at somebody else jogging down the street and thinking, oh, she's got it all together. She might not have a family. She might be running down the road focusing on her fitness because she's really stressed and concerned that she's not got a family yet. You don't know what's going on in people's minds. So that's one of the things I encourage the clients I work with, is to try and get away from this sort of natural comparison making that we do. And it is normal, and you know, it's not to sort of say that there's anything wrong with somebody for doing that, because it's a natural, normal thing to do. But when we recognize that it's not actually helping us, it's actually getting in our way, we can move away from that sort of comparison situation and just focus on ourselves and what matters to us.
Yeah, that is so true. I'm going to share with you an experience that I had about where it was so easy to make these assumptions. But before I do that, I want to share with you that we have a live audience building up here. So Jill has joined us from Wales, Carolyn has joined us from Singapore, and Tule is also here. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us live. So yes, you are so right when you say that there could be somebody slim or a person of certain age, and it is so easy to make those assumptions. As a 35-year-old, I have been put in fitness classes where the average age was, say, 75, because I was still undergoing active cancer treatment, and yeah, that's what cancer treatment can do to your body. And it could have been very easy for people to look at me and wonder, what is she doing here? I remember one of these classes, bone health classes, and the oldest participant was 85. Literally broke my heart. I wouldn't mind going to that class when I'm that age. But yes, I have been through that process. I completely understand and hear what you're saying. Yeah. And that leads us so beautifully into the topic that we have chosen for today, which is the serious business of making exercise fun. So say more, Diane.
Right. So, yeah. So where I'm coming from with this is we take exercise quite seriously often because we know it's important for our health, and we know we should be exercising, which is a word that I have a whole issue with in itself, but we can take it too seriously. So it is serious in that there's a whole range of important quality of life benefits that comes with regular physical activity. I'll probably mention a few of them in a moment. And quality of life is a serious issue, and I'm sure you completely appreciate this with your experience as well. And anybody who's gone through any kind of health crisis, either for themselves or a loved one, will have had that wake-up call moment when they've gone, oh wow, I really need to look after myself now. So it is serious from that point of view, but that doesn't mean we have to make the action we take serious, because we're not naturally inclined to exercise as human beings. And for anybody out there who thinks, oh, I know I should exercise, but I don't really feel like doing it, that's normal. We're designed that way, we're programmed that way, because as humans, we have evolved to try and conserve energy. There's numerous papers and books you can pick up on this subject. We're designed to conserve energy, and so we will move when we need to hunt, gather, get the community together, all those ancient practices. But we were never evolved to decide to go for a 20-minute jog around the block. That just would seem completely alien to our ancestors, that we would just decide to do that. So our bodies want to move, we're used to moving, but we're not used to making ourselves exercise for the sake of it. So what that means is we have to kind of trick our circuitry, if you like, to encourage ourselves to do it. And the best way I found for that is to make it more fun. If we do the activities we enjoy, we are far more likely to want to do them, and we are far more likely to keep going. So quite often you'll see in magazine articles and videos and things, you know, what's the best exercise for losing weight? What's the best exercise for getting a flat tummy? What's the best? The best exercise is always what you enjoy. The technicalities, to me, it's fine. You know, if HIIT workouts are very effective, that's great if you enjoy HIIT workouts, but don't put HIIT workouts in your program if you hate them, because then they're not effective at all. It's not going to help anybody. And that's where the serious business of making exercise fun comes from, because making it enjoyable and making it something you want to do and can easily fit it into life, which is what I'm really passionate about. It's a serious business to make that happen, because then you get all the benefits. And if I might, because I did mention on the preview for this about 30 ways that which I know you checked in with me, that it was 30 ways that
yeah, go on, tell us. Do you want me to count? Do you want me to count?
You can count if you want, because I've checked now where this comes from. Okay, so I'll just explain where this comes from. So this is in relation to what I've been saying about how we're evolved and it's natural to avoid exercise. And on top of that, there's a famous quote by a neuroscientist, I think his name is Rick Hansen, and he talks about that negative thoughts are, the mind is Velcro for negative thoughts and Teflon for positive thoughts. What that means is our brains are programmed to hold on to negative thoughts and experiences and quickly forget the positive ones. So if we've ever had any sort of slightly bad experience with exercise, that's what we're going to remember the most. And then the next time we try and do it, that's the thing that holds us back from doing it, because our brain's holding on to the negatives. So whenever you set a new exercise routine, you have a great plan, I'm going to start doing this from Monday, all the negative thoughts will start popping into your head, either before you even start or sometime in the first 1 or 2 weeks. It'll be, oh, why am I doing this? And I don't want to do it because of this reason and that reason. Okay, so one of the important steps I take with people is to make sure they have visibility on the positives, the positive experience they're going to get from physical activity. And to do this, I give them this quite long list. This runs to several pages. This is what I use in my workshops. This is a list of some of the benefits of regular physical activity. And I have highlighted 30 because there's more than that. So I'll give you all these examples. Okay, so benefits of regular physical activity: have more energy, promote effective problem solving, promote feelings of control, increase confidence, be more productive, be more alert, have fewer illnesses and absences from work, improve your balance, make yourself stronger, improve your relationships with others, be around for your family longer, improve your posture, feel better about yourself, learn new ways to cope with distress, manage your stress better, feel more relaxed and at ease, reduce your risk of breast cancer, reduce your risk of diabetes, reduce your body fat, improve your blood flow, improve your sleep, reduce pain, improve circulation, improve immune system function, lower your risk for dementia, feel like you're taking the best possible care of yourself, improve your mood, feel less nervous or anxious, improve your quality of life, improve your self-worth.
Wow.
That's just some of the things. And these are things that have been shown in studies to be results. So the other reason I use that list is not only does it give you a broader scope, because we often say, oh, exercise is good for you. That's nothing at all for our brain to latch onto. Whereas when you get into the detail, you can latch onto the things that are important to you. And I deliberately only picked about 3 things off the reduce illnesses list, because the reduce illnesses list is massive. But I do like to focus on the quality of life elements as well, which is why I put more of them in. But there's so many that there's something for everybody to say, that's the thing that matters to me, and that's the reason I want to do it.
Yeah. This list spoke to me, because as somebody who lost her health and built it back up from almost zero, each of those points, I would take each of those points, and I personally benefited from each of those positive fallouts of exercising.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so yes, what you're saying makes complete sense to me. I'm not so sure about the body fat bit in my case, but then there's more to that. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Yes, the list is much longer, but yeah, 30 is a good number to start with. All right, so what else would you like to add?
So another thing that can become a problem is time. So, so let's say, right, you're motivated, you understand all the great benefits you're going to get, you really want to be more active, and then you come to me and you say, but I've just not got time to fit it all in. Now, of course, one side of that is prioritization, because we all have the same number of hours in the day, we all decide how to use them, we all have to set our own priorities. So choosing to make health a priority will go a long way into helping find some time, and maybe choosing to do that versus something else. But the other thing I like to do with people is just change perspective a little bit on what you see as exercise. So I say exercise a lot because that's the word people are used to hearing, but really I'm talking about physical activity, any movement at all. So the government recommendations on physical activity, they talk a lot about doing 150 minutes a week of moderate activity, and moderate is getting slightly out of breath. So say a fast walk or a slow jog is kind of moderate activity. And so if we want to do that amount of physical activity and we want to fit it in, it helps to broaden our horizons on what's going to fit into the category of exercise. And so what I do, I'm actually running a free coaching right now in my own group where I'm going through this exercise with people today, is I encourage people to sit down and identify 10-minute time slots in the day. Just 10 minutes, can be bigger if you can find bigger, but 10-minute time slots where you could be doing some sort of physical activity. And I use the word could very deliberately because I want people to know that just because you can do it doesn't mean I'm going to make you. It's just looking where the opportunities might be. So it might be that if you wake up a little bit early, you could do 10 minutes of movement, physical activity first thing in the morning. It might be that you pick your kids up from school and you've got them for a couple of hours before tea time, and that, although it's not ideal, you could be physically active while you're with the kids because you could do something together as a family. It might be that you could be active when you're meeting up with relatives at the weekend because you could suggest that you all go for a walk together. So it's looking for opportunities when you could be moving, just 10-minute opportunities. And what I find when people do this exercise is they find a lot more time than they're expecting. Because the way we normally approach fitting in exercise is we choose the activity first. So we say, right, I want to go to the gym. I want to go to the gym for 40 minutes. When can I fit that in? And then we're trying to find a time to cram in this 40 minutes, which you've got to get there, get changed, get back, have a shower. So then it turns into 2 hours. And then you go, there's no way I can find 2 hours. And then you tell yourself you've not got any time. Whereas if you turn it round and find the 10-minute opportunities that you have, you might find that you've got 10 to 20 minutes every day of the week at different times. Now in 10 minutes, you can't get to the gym, but that's when we move on to other kinds of activities you could be doing, of which there is a very long list, not all of which we think of as exercise. So even things like dancing, like gardening, walking is always super popular. People love it when I tell them that walking counts, and it does count. Walking is a great one, especially if you can get, walk a little faster and get your heart rate up. I've got clients now who are doing all sorts of crazy things. So I've got 2 clients that completely unprompted by me have taken up pole dancing. And these are ladies that are 40 plus. They're not, teenagers or anything. It's been in the back of their mind, I'd love to try pole dancing one day, and they've gone for it. So I've got people doing pole dancing, they've taken up swimming, they've had a go at ballet. And it's really funny when I chat to them because I give people a kind of almost a blank check of you do what you love. The things they come up with they want to try are just brilliant. And then, of course, they all encourage each other. But yeah, going back to finding time, if you begin with where can I find 10-minute slots of time first, and then think what activity could I do in that time, that's usually a much more realistic way to start to build things in.
So if you want to exercise, say for 30 minutes in a day, and if you break it down in 3 slots of 10 minutes each, is that equally effective?
Yes, absolutely. In terms of physical activity, it's equally effective. I have seen some comments about if you're trying to exercise for weight loss, it's a good idea to do at least 20 minutes. I think that's something to do with getting into the fat burning zone, but I don't promote physical activity as a weight loss activity anyway. So in terms of the other benefits, physical activity, anything that you can do is good. And yeah, it's exactly the same as the activities you choose. You're choosing activities that you enjoy. so that you're able to do them. It's the same with the time slots. If what you have available are 3 lots of 10 minutes, that's much, much better than trying to make yourself do one block of 30 minutes if that's not going to work.
Yeah.
And the other side of that is habit creation. So I would much rather someone starting working with me, I would much rather they try to do 10 minutes a day if that felt easy, than jumping straight in with 30 minutes, because on 10 minutes a day, they can get used to, that's a regular thing that they do. Once they're feeling confident at doing 10 minutes a day, then they can start to increase it if they want to. And it's much easier to build up from a place of confidence than to try and dive in at the deep end with something that feels too hard.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. We have some comments here. Let me read them out to you. So Carolyn says, I've never found a sport or exercise I enjoy except badminton and Bikram yoga. Semi-dyspraxic and ADHD. I love dancing, but have decided to stop dance classes, even Zumba, because I felt I was being made wrong.
Okay. So, okay, well, so it's difficult to respond to that without the obviously having the discussion, but in terms of the not liking sports, except the things you've listed are totally fine. So go with that if those are the things you enjoy. Obviously, something like badminton might not naturally seem like it's something you can do in 5 or 10 minutes, but actually you could get your racket out and you could practice a little bit for 5-10 minutes, even if you weren't playing a full game. So there are things you could do with that. In terms of stopping dancing, that sounds like a real shame. So I'm not sure what the issue is there, but I would make the suggestion of maybe trying some different groups and different classes, because they're not all the same. They're really not all the same. You will get different approaches and different people. You can also do things on YouTube quite easily. It's not quite as nice in terms of having people around you, but if you wanted to do it in your own home, there's so much on YouTube now you can find for doing dancing classes and things that are really good, and often they're a good introduction to that particular instructor. So if you like what they're doing on YouTube and you notice they do have a in-person class, let's say, even if it's online, you've got an idea then of their approach, and then that can help you decide if that's a good fit for you and a good environment for you.
Yeah. A lot of times, even teachers lose track of whether somebody is participating just to have fun, whether they want to train as a Zumba dancer or whatever is going on, or they're just there for some bit of exercise. And if every participant starts getting measured with the same yardstick, then this is the kind of experience people will have. They will feel judged and criticized, and it's just not going to work.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate, and there's unfortunately in the fitness industry there's still a sizable number of instructors that just see the exercise fitness part and don't necessarily understand the mindset, psychological part, and they don't necessarily understand that some people want to be there for enjoyment, not to be made to do it a certain way. But it's like people, there's all different kinds of people in the world, there's all different kinds of fitness instructors in the world. So I would suggest trying out a few different people and seeing what you find. If you want to come and hang out in my group, that's a good place to ask other people in the group for recommendations, because obviously I attract people into the group that also want to do it mainly for enjoyment. So that's a good place to get recommendations as well.
Yeah, and when we finish, just drop the link to your group underneath this video and any other links, so we have everything in one place. Yeah, that's so important to remember that what is it that we want out of that particular activity? Do we want to have fun, just a bit of mindset, happiness thing, happy hormones, or are we training to be a pro or a professional at that skill? So that's really important. Yeah. When I gained this insight, in my own case, it was really liberating, because I could be in these classes, especially when I was in rehab for many years after cancer, and I would look at other people and think, oh my God, I'm so rubbish. And it was very easy for me to judge myself.
Yeah.
But once I cut myself some slack and understood that they and I were at completely different points and we have had different experiences. And I was there to build myself back up and not to get to that next level of fitness. I think it really helped me.
Yeah, yeah. And it's really great that you noticed that and you realize that, because that's, unfortunately, that's something a lot of people fall into. You know, you go to a new class, you try something out for the first time thinking, oh, I might like this and I might like to get good at it. And you go into that first class and you feel so far behind everybody else. And for some reason, we tell ourselves, oh, that means I'm not good enough to do it. When if we just take a step back and think about it logically, we've literally just gone in for the first time, or maybe we've just been doing it a few weeks. So we've not had chance to get to the same level of other people. And even once we've been doing it for a while, everybody's built differently. Everybody's got different things going on in their life. You know, everybody's got different pressures going on. We're not supposed to all be the same, are we? We're supposed to be different. It's actually something I talk about a little bit in my book as well, that I wrote, in this sort of worrying about if we're good enough to join in with something. I make the point, often people will drop out of fitness classes and like dance classes because they feel they're uncoordinated and they can't keep up. But actually that doesn't stop you getting fitter. You're not, it doesn't prevent you getting fitter that you're uncoordinated. That's there just to try and have something to focus on while you're moving your body. The important thing is that you're moving your body, whether you're doing it in a coordinated way or a completely random way is fine. As long as you're getting your heart rate up a little bit and you're getting a little out of breath, you're getting all of those benefits I listed and more, whether you're coordinated or not. So we can get a little bit tangled up in the wrong thing in terms of what's important. What's important is we're there and we're moving.
Yeah. This Friday, some of us are coming together on Zoom to have a dance party. And
lovely.
And when we do that, I'm going to do my best to remember some of the things that you're talking about today.
That's brilliant.
Dance like no one's watching.
Yeah, exactly. That's brilliant. Well, and the other thing is, of course, this other thing about when people see you, when you think what other people think when they see you, it's everybody's thinking about themselves anyway, so nobody has time to notice what everybody else is doing. I actually did, you just reminded me, so the retreat that I went to when I was recovering from my burnout, I went back there a couple of separate times for different retreats. And one of them we did, I think it's called Chakra Dancing. I don't know if anybody's done this, but we did dancing with our eyes closed. So I think it was for 2 hours, I danced in a dark room with my eyes shut. So you couldn't see what other people were doing. And obviously people were having a quick peek just to check that other people were dancing and they weren't just doing it on their own. But that was a really interesting experience, dancing with your eyes closed.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Eyes closed and in a dark room.
Yeah, I think there was like candles and things in the corners at a safe distance, so we didn't knock them over. So it was like dimly lit if you did have a little peek. But yeah, dark room. I'm sure it was 2 hours. It felt like forever.
Oh my God, that must have been interesting.
Yeah, it really was.
Was it harder to get by?
Was it harder to get by?
Yeah.
In terms of keeping going, do you mean?
Yeah, in terms of in terms of, you have already shared with us 2 hours felt like forever. Was it harder in the sense, were you losing your balance more? Was there something different going on?
No, I don't think, because you went at different speeds, so the music kept changing. So some music was a bit more energetic and some was a bit more relaxed. So all that happened is, like, let's say if you were feeling a bit tired, you just moved more slowly, at least as long as you were kind of vaguely making an effort. Nobody was going to judge you or say anything, or in theory nobody else could see what you were doing anyway. So yeah, the idea was just to like move your body in whatever way you felt like according to the music, and then the music would keep changing. So that would be, you know, changing the pace or doing something different.
Oh, I find when I'm exercising, as soon as I shut my eyes, everything becomes so much harder. All the balancing and wobbling increases, and it's more chaotic.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I guess we weren't, or at least I wasn't doing anything particularly to challenge my balance. But yes, that is, if you close your eyes, then you lose your sort of focal point that you're using your balance without realizing it. Yeah, it's a really good point.
Yeah. Wow. So much goodness there, so much goodness in what you have shared with us to help us start getting fitter in a fun way, because that's the key, isn't it?
That's the whole point. To me, that's the whole point. So one of the things when I came through my sort of burnout and I recovered from that, and I, had this experience of understanding that other women were going through not very nice experiences. To me, it's like, well, what's the point of doing all this, being here, unless we're going to try and enjoy ourselves? I mean, I know for some people it can kind of seem frivolous. It can kind of seem like a luxury item to have fun and enjoy yourself, because there's so much serious, horrible stuff going on in the world. But to me, it's like, well, what's the point of living through all of that serious, horrible stuff, unless along the way we're going to try and find the fun and find the enjoyment. And if we can do that in a way that we're moving our bodies as well, so we're looking after ourselves, it's kind of getting the whole win-win situation. And the other thing that I haven't mentioned yet is that I also focus quite a lot on getting people outside and doing activity outdoors where they can, because I'm also a really strong believer in the benefits of being outdoors can bring to us. So yeah, to me, it's as many things we can do that are good for us within the same activity. It's a real win when we've got all the other pressures of things we're trying to fit in as well.
Yeah. So you have participated in all these amazing events and you have done so many of them. Do you have any special stories or any favorites that you would like to share with us?
I've probably got a few. Okay, so if I thought about it a while, I'd probably get all sorts. So I just go with the first one that's jumped into my head, which is after I'd had my son and I was getting back into being more active again, and I got into doing triathlons again. My initial thought was, right, I want to do another Ironman, because I really like the challenge of doing Ironman. And there's something to me, because you're doing an endurance event, you're doing something repetitive for a long time. To me, it creates quite a meditative state. So to me, there's a mindfulness element to doing that really long distance stuff. And I think that's one of the things that appeals to me. Anyway, I set off doing Ironman training and realised that it was really going to be a lot harder with a 3-year-old, 4-year-old in tow. So I decided against doing that amount of training, and I dropped it to a half Ironman. So a half Ironman is still a 1900 meter swim, 1900 meter swim, 56 miles bike, and a half marathon, so 13 and a bit miles run. Okay, and the cut-off time for a half Ironman, I think, is normally around 7.5 hours, something like that. So I decided to do that, and I decided to do it in Edinburgh. So most people know Edinburgh in Scotland, right? It was the first ever half Ironman event that they were doing up in Edinburgh. And I thought, oh, that sounds great. It's not that far from me. And I like doing anything that's for the first time. So I thought I'll sign up to that one. The downside is that was a sea swim. So normally I avoid a sea swim because you've got to swim through waves and it's salty and all this sort of thing. Anyway, it appealed to me, the location. So I thought I'll put up with doing the sea swim. We turn up on the day and the waves were enormous. In fact, I say on the day, I went down for the practice swim the day before and they were already enormous then, although I did manage to get in for about 5 minutes before the sea pretty much spat me back out again. And on race day morning, they were still just as bad. So really strong winds, really choppy water. One of the lovely things about triathlon is often they will mix the professionals and the amateurs all together in the same race. So in our race, we had the elite professionals setting off on their race first, and then the rest of us were going to follow. So when I heard the announcement that the swim was going to be cut in half for the elite professionals, who were really strong swimmers, I knew we were all in trouble, because if they can't swim the full distance in it, what would it be like for the rest of us? So everybody had the swim distance cut in half. And that was basically so that the canoe cover, so you have people in kayaks like on the swim, so they can rescue anybody that needs rescuing. I don't know if I'm making this sound fun, by the way, but it appeals to me. These kayakers are all along the swim route, and by halving the distance of the swim route, they can effectively double the safety cover. So that was another one of the reasons they do that. Anyway, that's just my build up to what the swim was like. So we came to this swim, and I just couldn't even see where the next person was. You're supposed to like follow a route, following these buoys, these markers, but you couldn't see where they were because the waves were so high. So you were just trying to follow the other swimmers. I've no idea what direction we were going in. We probably zigzagged all over the place. And you would be swimming and the wave would lift you so high and then drop you on top of somebody else who was swimming. And it was just chaos. It was just chaos. And, you know, I'd set out doing this half Ironman thinking, oh, you know, I hope I can make it round. I think I can do the swim. I hope I can get round the bike. Will I get to the end? I don't really know. And suddenly it just became, am I ever going to get out of this swim? It's just like the focus really narrowed to, if I survive the swim, I'll be happy, kind of thing. That's the end of it, done. Anyway, I did survive the swim. I got round the swim. And I did eventually get round the whole race. It was an interesting race because, as I mentioned the time cutoff earlier, I thought I wasn't going to make the time cutoff because I was miles behind on the bike. But what I later learned is that they'd extended the time because the swim had been so difficult. So I did finish it because they'd extended the time allowed. But when I got home and everything was like analysing it all, what on earth was that? What happened? I found out that 10% of the field dropped out on the swim. So 1 out of 10 people didn't finish the swim. They sort of went, right, that's me, I'm stopping. So the fact that I even got round the swim, I'm really proud of. And then what made me laugh the most was I was in this Facebook group afterwards when people were talking about it. And one of the other competitors described the swim as a scene from a shipwreck as people were going down. And I thought, that is it. If I had to describe it one way, it was like I was in a shipwreck, a sinking ship, and there was just people flying everywhere. And it was quite a legendary event. Now that event doesn't run anymore. It ran for 2 more years. I think they had weather incidents of one form or another each of the years it ran, and then they decided to stop it. I don't know if the weather up in Scotland was the reason they had to stop it, but they did eventually stop it running. So I'm quite pleased that I managed to do the first one, and I'm one of the few people that survived Edinburgh Half Ironman.
Oh, that's amazing. Well done, you. Well done, you. What a remarkable achievement. Was this the event that you did with your dad? You shared a picture in the group.
I did an ultra marathon with my dad. That might be the one you're talking about. So that was 2018. So 2017 was the event I've just described. And then in 2018, there was an ultra marathon, which I'd had it in my head since the age of 14 that I wanted to do it, because my dad, I was going to say still does. My dad still does a lot of running. As we speak, he's walking a long distance route in France, up in the mountains somewhere. So I'm blaming him for a lot of this. But he started doing this ultra marathon even before the word ultra marathon was invented. So it's called the Haworth Hobble, is the official name. He started doing that when I was 14, and I wanted to do it with him, but I was far too young. You're not allowed to do that sort of thing when you're 14. And by the time I was old enough, I'd stopped running by then. I wasn't, I was a teenage girl and more interested in boys and pizza, and I'd, stopped all that sort of thing. And then I was never really fit enough to do it. And then I was more interested in triathlon. And then, so it never happened for one reason or another. And then at the end of 2017, because I'd done all this triathlon training, so I was relatively fit, but I was, let's say I was having a bit of a break, so I wasn't doing quite as much. And I thought, oh, it's that ultra marathon coming up next year. Maybe that's the year I could do it. But it was winter, and I struggle in winter a lot to motivate myself. So I hadn't been doing much. And it was only with 8 weeks left to go that I decided to enter it. Now, I would never, ever recommend to anybody to train for an ultramarathon in 8 weeks. It is not sensible. I knew I had my triathlon fitness in the background, so I knew I was taking a bit less of a risk because I had through the year done quite a lot. But even so, I knew it was risky. And if it wasn't that it was like a lifelong ambition, I probably wouldn't have risked it. But I thought, right, I'll start training for it. You can walk it if you need to. So I started doing like 5-mile walks, then 9-mile walks, then 17-mile run walks. My husband would drop me off somewhere in the hills, and then I would like take 17 miles to try and get home. The event itself is 33 miles. So I did just enough training to make it to the start line. It was horrendous weather. I'm very good at doing events in awful weather. We'd had snow and ice and rain, and it's up in the hills. And at one point, my leg went right down to the top of my leg, to my hip, right into a peat bog. So I had to like pull my entire leg back out of this peat bog. And it was a combination of running and walking. So I wouldn't even pretend that I ran it all. I didn't at all. It was run a bit, walk a bit, run a bit, walk a bit. And there were people doing it that were deliberately walking the whole way anyway. And I think we did it in about 10 hours. So the 33 miles in about 10 hours. And I did it with my dad, which was really nice to do. And I was exhausted afterwards. But I really like to sort of push myself to see what's possible. And what really helps me is I don't put pressure on myself about whether or not I finish. So every big event I've ever done, whether it's been the ultramarathon or an Ironman event, or even the very first short triathlons I did, which were really intimidating to me when I first started, I never put pressure on myself about the importance of finishing or not finishing, because to me, that's not what matters. What matters is starting. What matters to me is that I have made it to the start line. And then what happens will happen. I'll do my best. I'll try and enjoy it. If I don't get all the way around, at least I tried. And I think because I take that approach, it makes it so much easier for me to try things. And then almost by accident, I discover I can get to the end after all. But if I put that pressure on myself, I might not have even tried in the first place. So that makes a big difference.
Yeah. It takes all the pressure off. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm going to keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. It's being there. It's being part of it. And it's the old saying, isn't it? You're beating everybody on the sofa just by the fact you've turned up.
Yeah, so true. I understand you also have a book, don't you?
I do have a book, so which I conveniently have here, so I'll just wave it around.
And that's
the
little book.
The Little Book of Active Wellbeing. So it's probably in reverse, but so you can get that on Amazon, paperback or ebook. You can get it on Waterstones. And I wrote this really. This is quite different to any other fitness book you'll find. If anybody ever finds a similar fitness book to this, tell me, because I don't think there is one. So the reason this is different is it does not tell you what exercises to do. It doesn't say, do this exercise, follow this plan. It doesn't say anything like that. This book is all about helping women move from thinking about exercise to feeling ready to start to exercise. So it's that gap, that transition period that we often forget about, the difference between having a good intention and actually deciding to make it happen. This book is designed to help through that process. So yeah, really enjoyed putting that together.
Wonderful. So there's I can imagine, a lot of mindset, a lot of psychology-based work there.
Yeah, mindset. There's little activities you can do in it just to work through your own thinking. It goes through what I call thought obstacles and the 7 principles of active well-being. And so it takes common areas that hold women back specifically from being active, because we do have specific issues compared to men that can get in the way. It takes some of those common issues and obstacles and offers a different perspective, because often it's our own thinking that's getting in the way. And just by opening our minds to a different perspective, it can just move the dial just enough to change things. Most people, once they start with a bit more physical activity, particularly if they've chosen something they enjoy, they then start to feel a bit better and a bit more confident, and then it becomes easier. But it's getting started and feeling comfortable with what you're doing is often key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah. So tell us, how can people experience some of this goodness with you? How can they work with you?
So to work with me, there's a few different ways. So I do have a free Facebook group, like lots of people do, which is my active wellbeing community, and I will put a link to it. And as I say, I'm running some free coaching. Just coincidentally, I'm running some free coaching in there this week that people can dip into. I also run the Active Wellbeing Academy. So that's my full membership program for women that really feel ready, that they want to make lifestyle change. So really want to create a active lifestyle, find ways to blend the exercise in more easily, get into a routine that feels easy to manage. It's effectively a support group to help with that. So that's a membership program, and we have meetings every week, and I give advice and offer support to people each week going through that. That's a really nice group. And then I do also do one-to-one coaching, which can be done either as sort of power hours, or I can do packages for longer programs, depending what people want to achieve. I am going to develop the one-to-one coaching a little bit more to more specific programs, but I'm very happy to discuss with people their particular needs, and then I can suggest what I think will work for those circumstances if they prefer one-to-one coaching. So yeah, different ways to.
Wonderful. Yeah, there's something for everyone who wants to work with you.
Yeah, and people like to do it in different ways. Some people love the group work, and being in a group is lovely because you learn from the other people, but that's not right for everybody. Some people really value having the more intimate conversations and might feel more comfortable working one-to-one and being more flexible on the timings of the sessions and things like that. So I never really say one is better than the other, because I don't think that's the case. I think the best one depends on your circumstances and what works best for you.
Yeah. And you're on Facebook as well as LinkedIn, is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I can put some links in afterwards for people.
Wonderful. Before we let you go, what is one big message you want to share with our audience today?
Oh, so I think this is a good pickup for my final takeaway of the day, which is you can move more today. So many people put off being active and think it's this big thing they've got to plan for or start on Monday, and yes, there's a lot of preparation you can do to eventually bring more activities in, but you can gain benefit from being active right now. So lots of people think the benefits of physical activity come when you've done it for a long time. Some of the benefits do, but particularly when we talk about mental health and mental well-being, you will feel better if you get up right now, do something for 5 minutes, 10 minutes to move your body. That will boost the oxygen flow around your brain. It will push the neurotransmitters around. It will help you feel more energized and more productive straight away right now. So you can always do something with movement in any situation that will then help you feel better for the rest of the day.
So now is the best time.
Now is the best time. Yeah, you can only ever take action now. That's the only time we have, is now. That's all that's available to us.
Beautiful, beautiful. The past is gone and the future isn't here yet.
Yeah, never gets here.
Yes. What a beautiful message to finish this delightful conversation with. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you. You're very welcome.